Hokery dokery. Well, I really got wrapped up in this Heart Blossom project, guys. I'm going to give you another update just so I don't lose track of where I am on it. And again, this is me doing something ahead of time so that you can share the idea, the build process, the success or failure. Now I realize that a lot of people are going to find this boring. It's cold out there today, guys. Hey, this is the coolest thing in the world. If you live in an old school life where you've got people who know how to build custom stuff. My mom knits this stuff every year all the time. My sister actually built these on my request at work. I'm old. My neck gets cold. Same reason that all the little city kids wear hoodies. I need the back of my neck covered just like a hood. I can't wear a hoodie. Hoodies are for children. Doesn't matter. I shouldn't say anything against hoodies. It's just that the ones that have a zipper down the front that I can use get filled with concrete and they're no good. And the ones that I pull over just... Anyway, doesn't matter. Cool hat. Thank you, my sister Della. It's warm now. It's nice. So anyway, I've been out on a lathe. Bring this up a little bit here. Because I have reason now to use this Fart Blossom project to validate some of the things that I was going to do with the 510 Whisper based. Not really. I just have to give credit where credit was due. Again, I get a lot of people that whine and grunt and squeal at me because I claim to I don't invent squat, guys, but I do go try stuff and test stuff and blah 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 blah. So that's where I'm at right now. Is I've decided to go ahead and explain. I already explained the Fart Blossom process, but what I did now is I went out and I actually built it. It's been a day and a half. Today is Sunday evening. It's 10 something at night because my wife had to run down and bring some of our kids to the airport because they're going where it's warm. It's brutal out here. It's fall in Washington. We just came out of the fire weather. Now we're in the tree blowing down weather when it rains and storms, and big tree just about took out my 200-yard target butt. Big tree, like 4 feet through at the base. But anyway, I'm batching it tonight because I can, and my kid at home is out and about, and my wife is away, so I'm all alone. So when the cat's away, I will play. And that's exactly what I'm doing here, guys. Coming in, warming up after freezing. Actually, I was pretty comfy on the lathe. Proud to say I got an old school wife and old school kids, and I got old school clothes. And I say old school because I'm still so proud of this hat right here, because my little baby sister made it for me. Thank you, baby sister. Saves myself when I'm out there and there's a breeze blowing in through the cold door. So, like Waylon says in this song, they ain't got 'em all. I'm lucky to be blessed with a good life and a good wife and good kids, and just feeling good about that right now. But neither here nor there. I'm going to show you my progress this evening. I just jumped into this. I got it started yesterday. Got it started right after I talked to you guys about it a little bit. And then I started bringing stuff together. I went out and cannibalized a brand spanking new Savage Accu whatever. It's got the Accu trigger and the Accu stock. The Fart is built on an old roached out 110 that's probably 30 years old. So I took a brand new one off the rack, best of the best of the best that they make with the fiberglass stock. And I'm trying this little tiny one. And I'm going to show you what this little tiny one actually entails. And I'm going to show you, I'm gathering my thoughts here. Forgive me for being just a wee bit disjointed, because I think I'm doing some pretty innovative stuff here. I think I might be doing some stuff nobody's ever done before. And that's exciting to me, because it could be something that other people can take and use to their good advantage. As you remember, the Fort Blossom came from the idea, somewhere in here, I'm working with the Subsonic, and I realized I could build a nearly straight walled case. So I went out and started trimming up and measuring Lapuas and Normas. I got hot on it because I had grabbed up a couple of fired Hellbringer cases, and I realized this is big enough to hold a 50 bullet. As the case comes, remember this is based on the 404 Jeffrey case. The 404 Jeffrey case is basically this size. This happens to be a, let me get it up where I can read it. This is a 300 Remington Ultra Mag built by Norma. And I've got them by ADG and Norma and Remington and all different stuff. And this is my Hellbringer project. And I started realizing as I went through this that, hey, some of these fired cases, some of this stuff is getting, and I started measuring up, and they're blowing out real fatty at the back. Don't know that I have any really blown out ones here. But here's an idea. You can see the bulge back there. And I realized with just not too much bulgaciousness, I should be able to take this thing and make it work. Now, as I ranted about a little bit in the last one, this is not, I throw this thing, I've been working with 50 BMGs, so I hold these out and I look at them. These are all these little cases I did, a little bitty, I did a little Fire Blossom, I did a little bitty, little. People, this is still not a little case. This is still, I take one of these cut-off cases that I've just trimmed down to use. This is a 308 just for scale. I find that it's interesting when people do things for scale. That's a completely standard 308 right there. Don't know what brand it is. Federal cartridge, military version, something or another. But this is a case that you know perfectly well can blow up and hurt you. Well, I take this little tiny thing I'm playing with, that 308 case falls right into it. Now, I say that just to understand. When I say we're going into places that nobody's gone, that's exactly, we're going to be running pressures. We're going to be running pretty much BR pressures. I don't know what powder I'm going to use here. I started by cutting a bunch of these cases down. I thought I had them laying over here, but sorry about that. I cut a bunch down out of 404 Jeffrey cases, and the shoulder is so much farther back on the Jeffrey case that it ended up being about this long. And I started throwing, when I fired, lately I've been firing the 50 Fort, and I've been just using shotgun powder. And it's got all the room in the world. It's just only a little bit on the bottom. It's set up like a shotgun. This case being that much smaller, I figured I would take my shotgun powder load that I'm using in my Fart and drop it in here. Well, it filled it up all the way to here. And I went, wait a minute. There's nothing saying I'm going to fire these for effect with shotgun powder. I need to have room for all the different intermediates and all the way up to... So, long story short, this is about the size of my new case. Now, here's where things, in my opinion, get really wicked, wicked cool. I just blasted this out. I threaded this end for Remington 700, not because I'm going to use it for anything, but because Remington 700 is a thread that I work with all the time, and I got just scads and oodles of trash, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm going to be able to screw weights on here. I could screw a Remington 700 action onto this thing and leave it hang, because I need to weight this up quite a bit, or it's going to beat the ever-living P-Waddy out of me. So, I chambered this end up, and to do this, I'm going to draw you a picture in just a minute. I don't have a chambering reamer. I don't have anything for this. I'm going to try to get it so maybe the light can shine in so that you can actually see. There's a chamber in there. It's got steps and everything. Anyway, there's no reason to show you all that. I'll draw a picture of it. So, drop this on. Put just a whisker of oil on here. A whisker, I say. Because this is... don't need much. I'm not torquing this down. Just because you know how anal I am about torque shoulders, this step here is not too big. This is a pretty fatty barrel that I ordered, a parallel blank. Now I whipped this thing together, and this is why I wanted to do this video while it's still fresh on my mind. I just went through the making of the cases and the head of spaces. Right now, I've got 7/1000 of clearance between the end of the bolt and the back of the barrel. This being a Savage, that's just where I wanted to set it at. So, as you can see, that closes nicely. Now, when I cut this chamber, let me explain to you what I am doing. I be explain. I drew up some. As I'm drawing this thing up, I'm realizing that I think I can do something hitherto unprecedented, which I bumped on in the last video, but I'm going to now show you exactly what. Running these numbers, my plan is to headspace on the end of the case for my initial fire form. What that means is, I want to walk out there with the case that I have hacked off on the bandsaw, trimmed to a headspacing length so that I can get exactly the feel that I want. Put it in the gun with a bullet in it. Boom! It pops out with a shoulder on it. It pops out with a fat butt. It pops out basically ready to go back into the gun with a little bit of feel. I hope. Nobody's ever done this before, and that's the only time the case mouth will get used for headspacing is to fire form. It should pull back just a fuzz, give me 2 or 3 thousandths of gap space. And now it'll start headspacing on the shoulder, which isn't even there yet. That's my plan, Stan. We'll see. So here are some drawings of the 540 neck, 575 case, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to bother you with that because none of these numbers are actually meaningful to you. So I'll just set those aside. Grab me a notepad and draw you some pictures. Because I think this is cool conceptually. So, we're going to find out if I can convince all y'all. Basically, I cut a chamber that's shaped like this. And that is the extent of it. What that means is, I ran a tool bit in to headspace, and I chowed this out. This would be the riflings here. And since I have throating reamers, I'll probably go in and chuck a throat in there, just because I can. I don't know why I'm going through all these histrionics, because they don't mean anything to you guys. But that's kind of what a throat looks like with the rifling lands. Except that I actually did them backwards. That's the funny thing. I got an unscrew and left-hand twist barrel there. But this cartridge case goes in, bam! It headspaces right here on that step. Now, I tapered these just a little bit. So now, the next thing I'm going to do is start, and at this point, this case, by the way, is just in here. All this extra room, it's just in here. So there's the edge of the case up here. Boom! It's going to pop out here, pull back a little bit, And now I'm going to have a case with some kind of a shoulder on it, I hope. Well, I'm rationally sure that that is what's going to happen because I've done stuff like this a ton in the past. But one thing I have never done, what I did with the fart and a few others is I headspace by turning back and making a step. Or in the case of the fart, it's so big I actually sized back and made a step. But I have done some in the past that I thought I was referencing one with the fart, but I was wrong. The fart is not one. But I do have some where I have turned back and made a head spacing step and they've blown out, and that has worked just fine. But in the interest of utter simplicity, take a, let's see what this is, I said before, but 300 Remington Ultramag case, put it in the bandsaw, whack it. Trim it to a length. Now here's where the lengths get, I'm going to go through some of the process I went through with this. I started because I could take the time to cut this thing I didn't. I just threw some parameters at it, and I said I'm going to run a chamber that's about 2 1/4 long, maybe make it a wee bit strong so that I don't have, so that basically what happens is on these cases, if I make them too long, we start rolling down into the shoulder and they're a pain to make. Every now and again anyway. So I backed off a little bit. I said, about 2 1/4 inches. So this one here is 2.257. That's over 2 1/4. And I put this in, and remember, there's been nothing done to this case. And you can see, if you're into chambering, there's a huge gap right here. I put my finger in the wrong slot. There's a huge gap right here. I missed by, I don't know, enough that it's not a huge gap, but it's enough that it will not close, even when I put pressure on it. So I come down to 2.3. No, 2.2. Oh, I had them wrong here. 2.3 might have been the longest one. I don't know. Anyway, they came down by 3/4 thousandths increments, and I went down and I blew off the bottom of the scale because I figured the last thing that I don't know is, what are these things going to do? What did this just do? It's cocked. Anyway, I blew off the bottom of the scale until I have some that just close easily with no resistance at all, and I stopped. As soon as I got to that, I stopped, and that one is 2.234, 38, 2.25, 2.242, 2.242. Okay, I can feel, I know I'm close. So I ran one just the other side. I went to 2.254. Don't try to keep up with these numbers. And I have an actual crush fit. Now, this is the fit that I would use on a PPC. That does not mean that it's appropriate for this, and there's a few other things. This barrel is still loose. When I tighten it down, there's going to be a certain amount of crush. I'm going to lose a thou or two, but now I have a range of cases. I can tighten this down to my 150 foot-pounds-ish. This shoulder won't deform because this barrel is big enough that it won't deform. Trust me on that. At 150 foot-pounds. But it's going to change my headspace. Now I've got a range of cartridges in here, and I'll find the one that fits the way I want, or just, now that I've bracketed my slot, I've got some that I know are too short and some that I know are too long. Now at this stage, this is where in the past I would go build a bunch of dummy cartridges, and I would end up with a whole bunch of wasted cases. Wasted to me. With no powder in them. And then I got to go pull them, and they're kind of pussed up, and they're this. So this time I decided, no, I'm going to skip that step. I'm going to set my final headspace with loaded rounds. Why not? My range is right here. My window is 30 feet away. So my next step now is to take some of these, take a swag. I think that tight one right there is going to probably be too long. I think it's going to be one of these loose ones over here, one of these undersized ones, because when I put a bullet in, it's going to blow it way out. And there is a slight angle going up into there. So one of these is going to fit with a bullet and give me the feel that I want. And I'll go fire it and then go make several more, and I'll get a handful of 3 or 4 of them and start blasting with them. And so next time you see this thing, I don't have to build a stock for this. I really don't have to do anything. I just have to pull this barrel back out, clean it up, lube it up correctly, squish her up to 150 foot-pounds, go bolt it into a standard. The stock is, I keep leaning around because I'm looking, the stock is laying here somewhere in this nightmare. Bolt it up, shoot it. It's ready that quickly to shoot. And this threading right here is going to allow me to just add weights until I get this thing up to 15 or 16 pounds, because I'm finding out that the fart's comfortable to shoot now that I've decided to knuckle down, buckle down, put the weight on it. The thing that was killing me was I was insistent on basically a 7-8 pound gun that would come out under 10 with the scope. I wanted a nice light little hunting package, and it kicked the ever-living snot out of me. So I built the other one up. I put the big fakey tube. Now, this one's not going to go out the window very well. It's going to try to be inside the window, so I'll probably have to put a box in my window frame so that I can shoot it comfortably. But this allows me to do a bunch of testing against the fart. One of the problems with the fart, like I said, is it's an old roached out action on a cheesy plastic Tupperware stock. And I haven't even put an aluminum block in it. So I'm doing the same thing I started to do with the 50 BMG. I'm going to build 2 of them. This is going to be the better one of the 2 probably, because this one is built on, not that I think much of Savages, but it's a shouldered Savage. I'm using the factory recoil lug so that I can do everything bada bing, bada boom. I can just throw it into the Savage Aki stock and give it a lash. Find out where I am, and then I can compare the 2 and I can work up. It's really nice. This prototyping thing is frustrating because anytime you're using just one, it's harder to baseline, it's harder to find a comparison, it's harder. This gun should actually shoot better than the fart, which frankly hasn't shown me anything good yet. I'm still working on that. It's got balance issues. This is going to have, but because of this threaded muzzle, I'm going to be able to play with just throwing junk on here. Just take a piece of metal plate and bash a hole through it and thread it to this. And I mean, endless plausibilities to come up with something and to test this out. And honestly, I think this little Blossom is going to do, it's going to have way more than a 308's worth of powder in it. More than enough to hurt one. You know, more than enough to push that bullet up to 1,050. So, that's my latest of the day excitement. I wanted to share that with you and say, hey guys, it's moving forward. And even though it might have looked small in the last video, it's not exactly. When you compare it to a 308 case, you find that it's still a briefy little case. And should do exactly what we want. In the end, we're wanting to get this. Right now, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be rational.